The in-season tournament quarterfinals are set, and we'll run down all of the matchups. Plus, who's the tournament favorite? And Mark Cuban is selling the Mavs. It's the Wednesday episode of Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the daily podcast covering everything you want to know about the association. And on Wednesdays, I'm your usual co-host, Jake Madison, at Nola Jake on Twitter, and the host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
Filling in 2 weeks in a row for the ownership changes. They call me in out of the bullpen. Tony East from Locked On Pacers on Twitter at Tony R. East. Jake, I'm in-season tournament pilled, baby. I love it.
So I love the in-season tournament. We're going to talk about that for the first two segments here. We got the quarterfinals. We had an awesome game that was riveting between the Kings and the Warriors that we couldn't even record till the game ended because there were stakes on a potential blowout if they didn't win by enough. We're caring about this. Tony, it's what time for you right now?
1:50 in the morning.
Yeah, and you're probably so excited to be talking about this here on Locked On NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Become an everydayer. Listen Monday through Friday to a rotating cast of hosts covering the biggest stories around the association. And look, the in-season tournament, you and I talked about this last week. Tyrese Halliburton even said it last week. If you're an everydayer, you heard us discussing this. The in-season tournament's a success, right? Like, this was kind of a pretty fun night of games for everything.
I predicted this after the very first group stage game that the last night would be awesome because every team's path to advancing or to a better scenario or whatever would be obvious, right? Because all these other games have been played, so you can know what's ahead of you, right? The Knicks knew they had to win by 20 whatever if they wanted to make it into the wild card spot. Well, guess what? They were hosting the Hornets, so they did it. They won by 24. They kicked their butt. The Bucks knew they had to win what normally would be a tough game in the regular season in Miami to have the 1 seed, and they did it. And now they have the easiest first-round game in the East, although New York's playing pretty good. The Cavs had to win by a lot to have a chance. They won by 23. The Nets had to win to have a chance. They didn't make it, but they won. The Celtics had to win by a lot to have a chance, and they won. Like, you can go down the line, and every game tonight, someone had stakes and tried to had to step up. The only teams that didn't quite pull it off were Houston, and I think OKC was already eliminated. And then that led to an awesome finale. Like, high stakes, important differential, so 48-minute games. It was awesome. I think it's a resounding success, and the players clearly care.
Look, it's a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning for you, technically, and we were so excited to stay up and watch this. We couldn't record till we knew the final score. This is what the NBA wanted with this. The point is not for the fans necessarily. It's just to make these games matter more, right? The Golden State Warriors had to win by 28 or more, and they would have hosted the Pelicans in the quarterfinals of this. You know, they were up by 24 in the first half of this game. Imagine, it was played in Sacramento, but imagine if it was like in the Chase Arena, Chase Center, whatever it's called, right? Golden State. Their fans wouldn't have left early, even if they were up 20, knowing that they needed to win by 28 to host the next game. And it would have just elevated the stakes. It would have kept fans there. I was riveted by this game. At one point, they're up 24, and it's like, well, I don't need to pay attention. But it's like, oh, wait, I do. They need 4 more points. Are they going to be able to pull this off? This is exactly what the NBA wanted to do, which was just make these regular season games, which they are, matter a little bit more, and it's fun. By the way, the quarterfinals, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, is Suns at Lakers, Pelicans at Kings, Knicks at Bucks, and Celtics at Pacers. Other than the Pacers game, given you cover them, what's the matchup you like the most?
Yeah, just big picture on that, first of all, with absolutely no offense to either the Pelicans or the Kings, who both are in the bracket because they deserve it. I think it's awesome that one of them is guaranteed to be in Vegas, right? Because it's possible
small market team.
It's possible that it's Boston, Milwaukee, and then either Lakers or Suns, right? And they're all in the inner circle of teams that you could say if they won the championship, you wouldn't be surprised. But the Pelicans and Kings, if they won the championship, you'd go, oh, wow, that's surprising. So the fact that, especially in a win or go home scenario, there's going to be like a darling, for lack of a better term, that's great, right? That more good things in the NBA from this tournament. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the Pacers lost to the Celtics by 51 earlier this season, so that wouldn't even have been my answer anyway, if this was the case. I, as a dork and a person born in the year I was born, I'm going to be gravitated towards KD versus LeBron. I think that's going to be an awesome game. I think Suns-Lakers is going to be so much fun. I've already played this season, and it was a blast, even though I believe Booker and Beal didn't play in that game. Doesn't sound like Beal's going to be back anytime soon. But the Suns are rolling right now. And the Lakers obviously have gone undefeated in this group thing. And LeBron just recently said they need to make some changes after they got smoked by Philly. So I think that game will have the most intrigue for me personally, just because they have a good matchup of styles. There's good star power in that game. The role players have been fun. There's just a lot that can happen in that game that I personally think I'll really enjoy.
No, that's a great way to put it, I think. Again, it's star power, right? There's stakes to it. Can LeBron elevate the team? Something like that. I'm actually pretty excited for like Pacers Celtics. I was gushing last week with you about Tyrese Halliburton. The Pacers are, I think, like everyone's darling in the NBA right now with the offense that they have. We'll talk about the Celtics and maybe the Suns next in the next segment about who's the tournament favorite. But like a high-powered offense with a star player who wants to win this thing, right? Does Tyrese Halliburton have what it takes to basically like will the Pacers past the Celtics? Maybe. That seems pretty cool. I love your point though about kind of like an underdog darling team, right? It's kind of reminiscent a little bit of like March Madness, that if you don't really care about any of the teams in here, are you actually maybe rooting for like the Pelicans or the Kings or maybe even the Pacers too, to like kind of upset a team and everyone's going to lose their collective minds over that sort of thing? Like, I don't know, man. This whole thing has been fun. The courts have been fun to me. I just love that it makes these games matter more. And as you said, the players care very clearly. The coaches care. Clearly, they're going to be running this back next year and probably expanding it to some degree, you would imagine.
Yeah, some tweaks definitely will be coming. Like, I feel for the Cavs a little bit. I saw Justin Rowan, who does the Chase Down podcast for the Cavs, tweet about this. Like, the Cavs just went 3-1. Their only loss was the very first game to the Pacers. They have a plus 29, and they don't make it, right? So, like, they lost the first game and were effectively out of it right then, even though they played well the rest of the game. So, like, somehow making it possible to overcome a bad start, I think, is something the NBA might look to change. Although it's not the Cavs' fault. Like, other teams played better than them, right? It's just that does suck for like the flow of how those games went. But either way, yeah, slam dunk product. It's fantastic. All the games tonight were amazing. I'm a little gutted. Also, okay, I have two more things responding to what you just said. I have a lot of energy for the in-season tournament. One, yeah,
good, like, bring it, man. That's what we want on the podcast
every Sweet 16. Right, there's a St. Peter's or Fairleigh Dickinson or whoever in the NCAA tournament, and everyone's rooting for that team, right? Except for the literal fans of the team they're playing against, because it's cool. It's just cool. You never see these teams play. It's really exciting. Everybody's talking about it, right? So that's awesome. And I'm not saying the Kings and Pelicans are like on that level, obviously, but just because you don't know
they're
them,
not on that level, but
it's just fun and cool.
Let's be realistic here.
I'm also a little gutted for the Kings because the Warriors beat them in a series last year where they're kryptonite earlier last season and this season. Clay hit the big three against them and like broke their hearts early this season. They finally overcome the Giant. Sick comeback. Took them the whole second half to do it. Slow drip of a comeback. And it's not even our leading story because the in-season tournament rocks that much, Jake. I'm hyped up.
They also get like the worst matchup possible for them in the Pelicans, who just beat them in back-to-back games, essentially, including one by like near 40 points, and they just don't match up well with the Pelicans. So it's like you get over the hump of like your arch rival in a sense here, and you're like, oh, we run into the one team that maybe like is the worst possible matchup for us here. So, I'm cool with it, but I'm a little biased when it comes to something like that. Like, no, this has been fun. I was really skeptical about the point differential at first, like really skeptical. Was it Jason Tatum who was talking about the point differential the other day and was like, I hate it. And then it works. It makes this so I'm rooting for like a 20. I actually wanted to, the Pelicans to play the Kings. So I'm like, cool, win by 27 or something like that, or win by 11 and the Kings would have advanced. So all of it was just kind of wild with the different permutations of everything, I think.
Yeah, it was awesome. Awesome. Like I had this dreamed up scenario where the Warriors were like down or were up like 11 and had the ball in the last possession. So they're going so hard to try to score so they can make the quarterfinals, right? Like that'd be so fun. Or the inverse where the Kings like desperately need a bucket to lose by 11. Yeah, the point differential turned out interesting. I think my new working theory is there's a cap, right? If no matter how much, if you win by more than 10, it's 10 or something like that. Just so it's like,
that's an interesting idea.
That's what DeRozan and Tatum are annoyed about. And they're right to kind of be like, we're down by 30. Like, come on, what are we doing? Like, but they have to because it matters for advancing. So if there was a cap for every team, and it would make the last day guaranteed to be more interesting because the numbers would be smaller and closer. And they're trying to copy a soccer format. And in soccer, it works so well because the goal differences every game is like 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, it's not like 28, 29.
like,
where you're
yeah.
like,
So I think a cap would be interesting. Either way, yeah, the point differential mattered in like a lot of games tonight. It was very cool. It was very fun.
All of them. It could have mattered for the Pelicans and Suns for the wild card, where if the Pels had 2 more points, it would have been a big difference, I think, or 3 more points, because I think they were behind the Suns by like 2. Like, all this stuff mattered. It's just cool. Like, again, I think this is maybe a little bit for like hardcore NBA fans, like NBA nerds. Like, this isn't going to get the casual fan going of like, 27 versus 28 point win. I don't know. It's still kind of fun. Like, people listening to the show, like, let us know in the comments down below on YouTube. Do you like the point differential? Or are you following along with the score, even in a blowout, to see if it was going to end up being? And this game ended up being close. But yeah, I think we both agree the in-season tournament, big success here. So coming up next, though, let's talk a little bit more. Who's the favorite? Celtics? Is it going to be another team? That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On NBA. Right now, though, I'm going to tell you about eBay Motors, because our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire every week, we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us this week on eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. You got Jaden Ivey. His level of play has improved since joining the starting lineup, and with the Pistons going nowhere, surely they're going to continue to invest in him. He should get a lot of minutes, a lot of buckets. Gordon Hayward, if he was dropped in your league, you should grab him right now that LaMelo Ball is out with an ankle injury. You also have Scoot Henderson. It's going to be rocky for a bit, but Scoot is back, and his value and minutes are going to rise. If you can afford some bad games, he's worth grabbing. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. I work on all my cars. I have a current Jeep that is my daily driver. I have a 1976 Corvette that I'm working on. It needs constant parts. There's nothing worse than ordering a part online, taking out an old part, putting in the new one, and realizing it doesn't fit. Now that part's going to come out. The car's not driving for a while. I'm wasting time. I'm wasting money. It's a mess. eBay Motors fixes that. With over 122 million parts for your vehicle, you can make sure your vehicle is running smoothly. You just want to upgrade it, make it look cooler. They got brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your vehicle needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, which is what I love the most, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at the prices they're offering you, you're going to be burning rubber, not cash. Keep your vehicle on the road at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, for your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right. Tony and I love the in-season tournament. Tony, what was your hot take that you said before we started recording? If you don't love the in-season tournament,
you don't like the NBA. You don't like basketball. Can I take the Kings line after that DeMarcus Cousins dunk? If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
There you go. There you go. Tony, that could have been the real or fake today, actually. Like, that would have been fun. But we're going to play real or fake because we do that every Wednesday here. So this one's pretty simple. We got 8 teams left. Real or fake, Tony? The Celtics are the current favorite to win the in-season tournament.
Real. I might be a little bit gravitated towards the Celtics' success because, like I said earlier, I had to watch this game twice. They beat the Pacers by 51. That was a lot. It was the most threes they've made in a game for like 30-something years. They did a lot of stuff they haven't done in a long time. But even outside of that, I've watched more of the Celtics than that. They look very good. It's not just that they look good. They have the best net rating in the NBA. At 9.7. In fact, they're one of only 4 teams above +6. The other 3 are not in the bracket part of the tournament. It's Philly, Minnesota, and Oklahoma City. So in terms of just net rating and what they've done this season, they're head and shoulders above the rest of the field. The next best net rating team, ironically, in the field is the Knicks, which I never would have guessed. Obviously, we're a little bit of small sample size theater here. But I think the Celtics have been the best team in the league, and that will carry into this. They don't have the hardest first-round game, with absolutely no offense to the Pacers, who have played well, especially in these games. They already have dispatched that team very easily. They beat the Bucks already. Like, they're just really good. Maybe they'll play the Knicks, and that it could be tough. They've beaten the Knicks already too, I believe. So I think they're the favorite, although I think that you could make an argument for almost any team for some, like, they're good teams. They did well in their group, but I think you can make an argument for almost any team for some reason, right? The Pels are playing awesome now. The Kings with Fox back have been good. The Suns and Lakers, I don't need to make the argument. The Bucks and Celtics, I don't. The Pacers haven't lost in these games. They get way up for these in-season tournament games, and obviously the Knicks are still tough. They got Tibbs, and any night that defense can get you. I mean, you could really make an argument for any team, but yes, I would pick the Celtics over the field right now.
So I'm going to go fake.
Ooh.
I'm going to go fake.
Ooh.
I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks in this. They're on a streak right now. They've won 8 out of their last 9, something like that. You're starting to see Giannis and Dame, start to coexist, look a whole lot better. Giannis was good in his game here as they won to advance. And look, man, Dame time's a thing. We got a hand motion and everything for it. I can't do it because I'm holding a mic here, but you need like a clutch bucket. You're looking to him. Maybe you're looking to Devin Booker too, I guess, in this after the game winner he had the other night, which was ridiculous. But I look at that and I go, okay, if they're going to start to get it together, and Giannis, you could argue, is still the best player in the league, maybe the best player in the tournament, since Jokic isn't in there, Embiid's not in there at this point. I think that could take them a really long way. Dame to close them out, I think, is a big thing. I agree with you that to any extent you could almost argue, right? Like, are the Pelicans or the Kings going to have kind of that like small market, no one believes in us, we're not supposed to be here, like momentum and ride a Cinderella story? LeBron's still LeBron. How do you feel about the Suns in this one?
Pretty good. Now that Booker's back, they've been fantastic. You know what this is going to remind me of, right? You probably know this picture. We probably know this picture uniquely compared to anyone. The draft in 2019, and they have Zion Williamson and Goga Bitadze doing media at the same time, and everybody's Zion stand, and Goga's just sitting by himself looking over. That's what, if it's Lakers and either the Pelicans or the Kings from the West, that's what it's gonna feel like for the underdog story. It's gonna be quite funny. Booker has, like, all he's concerned about the Suns' point guard play. Like, Booker's alleviated all of them. He's been such a good handler. Yeah. He can pass a little bit. It takes the pressure off of KD so he can play better defense during the game. And he kind of connects everything, right? He makes life easier for Nurkic. He makes life easier for their shooters. He himself is unbelievable on the move, on the catch, wherever. And Eric Gordon has stepped up. He's had 2 huge games for them this week too. So they're really clicking. And I think having Book, like, even without Beal, I think just booking KD is probably the best duo in this thing left. So that would be the argument for them, especially if Booker keeps playing like this. I mean, they might be my favorite in the West. So, they match up pretty well with the Lakers too. Like, who's going to guard? No one can guard Booker, obviously. But, like, who are they going to
That's what it feels like, right?
No one can guard the stars. I hate that phrase, but you know what I mean.
Yes. Also, that was a ridiculous game winner he had the other night. When he gets going like that, like, what are you going to do when a player's playing at that sort of level? Like, I'd probably rank them, I think, like, Milwaukee is my favorite, I think, here. And like Celtics Suns tied maybe for like second,
sure.
I think seems realistic when it comes down to it. Again, star players, with the Bucks, with the Suns, and then like complete team with the Boston Celtics.
Part of me kind of hopes to, I agree that those 3 would be my top 3. I think now that the Bucks look like a team again and not just like a bunch of talented players who've never seen each other before. And so that helps a lot. They have a new coach too. There's a lot of reasons they look like that, but now they don't. They look like good. Brook Lopez has been a lot better on both ends for them recently, which helps quite a bit. Middleton can play more minutes. So I think those would be my top 3 too. I mean, look, LeBron and AD, like, you can never just
LeBron and AD,
right? And I think now that we've been talking about this for this amount of time, part of me, just given what the history of the NBA is, thinks it'd be really cool if it was a Lakers Celtics final. That would be a great way to get people to dive in. Like, the 2 most storied franchises meeting in the first final would be pretty sweet, even though I don't necessarily think the Lakers have the easiest path. They don't match up necessarily well with any of the teams in this, so we'll see.
No, I agree. Also, like, really, you're going to call it the first final? That's a weird way to like phrase it.
What would you call it? Good point. You're right.
In-season tournament championship game. Like, I don't know if I can call it the first final.
I oversold that a little.
You've got the tree behind you that sounds like very like holiday season, the first final or something.
The NBA is
like
writing
that,
me
right?
checks to call it the finals. So
Yeah.
I'm
I did have
gassing
a
up
friend when
Thursday.
I was out with a couple friends the other night and we were talking about this and I was like, look, I love the courts. Like I love everything about the in-season tournament. I also like geek out on basketball. And one of my buddies was like, oh, okay. You getting checks from the NBA to like sell this? And I was like, Tyrese Halliburton said he liked it, man. Did you see the game he had the other night? And he's like, yeah, he's pushing the company line of let's make this a thing. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
If the games were just like normal run-of-the-mill crappy regular season games, it wouldn't matter what they said. The reason it matters is because the games have been really good.
It's been good. Like everything about this has been
Yes.
good. It feels different having like been in the arena for two of these games. Like it just feels different in there, doesn't it? Like I think fans seem to pick up on it. Even casual fans, you see the weird court and like, well, this isn't what it normally is, right? Even if they don't
They Google
get
it on their phone from their seat and figure it out.
well, it's just even then they were like, I don't know what this is, but clearly the stakes are a little bit higher and this is kind of cool. So like I should be into it in some capacity, right? Like, yeah, I like that. I don't know. The whole thing's been like a big success.
I hate the courts, but I love the whole rest of it. So good
Hate
job.
the red courts. Hate the red courts.
We talked about this last week. I don't
I
need
know.
to rant too much about the courts again. I am a hater.
We're just doing the same show. It's great. Let's make our lives easier here. Cool. Speaking of doing the same show, an owner news came up. Let's talk about that coming up here next in today. I'm a pro in today's episode of Locked On NBA. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because as the weather gets colder, the NFL and NBA offers stay hot on FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you're betting on one of the in-season tournament games, you pick the money line. They win, you win your $5 bet, and you get $150 in bonus bets. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and it lets me find all of the betting options I'm looking for, like the spreads, the player props, the over-unders. You can even bet the NBA futures of the in-season tournament winner here, or go with a same-game parlay to make your payout even more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on, kick off the NFL action that you want to get involved in, tip off the NBA action that you want to get into as well. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, breaking down everything you want to know about the association, rotating cast of hosts. Here, me, Jake Madison, host of Locked On Pelicans, along with Tony East, host of Locked On Pacers. Become an everydayer. Listen Monday through Friday. Support the show that way and never miss anything going on around the league. And we got more owner news, because of course we do, which is what happened last week where we talked about James Dolan. This one was a shock, though.
Big.
I was legitimately surprised when I saw this come across from Shams or Woj, whoever it was, of ESPN, saying, oh, by the way, Mark Cuban is selling a majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks to Miriam Adelson and casino tycoon Adelson family for a valuation of the franchise in the range of $3.5 billion. But Cuban is also going to keep shares in the team and have full control and basically run the Mavs. What was your initial reaction to this?
It's crazy. Selling a team in the middle of the season like this, with really no buzz that this was happening. Like an hour before, I saw some tweet from like an SEC filing that she was going to be buying a significant stake of a sports team. But like Cuban is, very involved in
the face of the Mavs. Like,
right. And so
what
part
you
of
think?
why I think this is plausible. Well, I just cut you off. I'm sorry. And you did kind of allude to it earlier, but is that I even read a story about this. Like at the beginning of the month, he was talking to some news outlet about adding casinos and betting to the Dallas scene. Right. So this maybe has been in the works for, obviously it's $1 billion purchase. It's been in the works for a little bit, but for a minute, and Cuban knows, like, and I think this is part of it. Mark Stein's been all over this, right? He's boots on the ground in Dallas. Has talked about, this being maybe part of an arena thing as well, where there could be, let me read him exactly so I don't mess this up. Mark Stein says, Cuban, who turned 65 in July, has been saying for years he hopes to someday build a new arena in Dallas with a casino attached. Well, hey, this is the perfect way to do it. And it's the perfect agreement to me for the guy Mark Cuban is. He can still run the stuff he wants to run while someone else with the business savvy side of that stuff he wants to add can come in and do that too. So yeah, he's not the controlling owner anymore, but it seems like a good agreement for him, which is why this got out kind of the way it did to me.
Yeah, it's interesting for a couple of reasons. One, if you looked at Forbes' valuation of the team, it was more than $3.5 billion. I think it was like 4.5.
Yep.
So it seems like he sold the majority stake of the team at like a discount to really get kind of a like strategic part. It's like a Shark Tank deal, right? Is basically what he did here to get the right like strategic partner. It feels like. Come on, I'm surprised you didn't make that joke like early on.
That was
here.
great. I
It's
can't
like,
believe I didn't make that joke either.
I mean, that's what it is, right? This seems like something he would do. He still runs the team, so he more or less like keeps his toy, right? And can keep doing what he does because he very clearly loves owning an NBA team, going to the meetings, being an NBA owner, right? But when you sell the majority of it, it's no longer yours. But if you have an agreement in place where you get all the perks of it, then you get the cash, and then you're going to get to do all the other things that you want to do. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, it's still weird. It's like weird that like eventually you feel he might get pushed out or something like that when you don't control the majority of the shares, when you're not the managing partner, even though he is. You know, there's still ways for him to kind of get booted out of a team that's more or less synonymous with him, I think, at this point, right? Like, I can't kind of split the two. Like, I don't even remember the Mavs from a time before he owned them, and why would you? So that part's a little weird. It makes me like nervous because I think the NBA is better with Cuban in it, and he's brought in a lot of even the 3-sided shot clock essentially was like his thing for people to see that all around the court, like little things like that you don't think about are like important that he's brought to the league. So it's super weird, but it also says like kind of the next frontier of this, right? Like he wants to be on the cutting edge of everything. It's going to be way more sports gambling, sports betting, very much intertwined, not just with the NBA, but any league.
So he's been good for a lot of the league in that he pumps money into it, but he's created, by a lot of reporting, a pretty bad culture.
Actually, that's a very good point. No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's like really worth mentioning when it comes to everything.
They have had some awful treatment of women in the past, which has been well documented and reported. To stick on the subject we're currently talking about, though, yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And I think like the kind of guy he is, both what we can see on Shark Tank and from like the way he talks about his businesses and the way he runs them, like he wants to still be involved and run stuff. Right. And so I think this allows him to be who he is and do something that he likes, while also giving him more money to do the things that he likes, which is a big part of it.
I will say this. So like if he's selling the majority of the stake and they're valuing the franchise at 3.5, he's not getting 3.5. He's going to be getting less than that, whatever the majority, you know, if he's selling 51%, he's getting 1.75 billion. His net worth is in the 6 billions. Does he need the cash necessarily? That's what I always kind of like wonder about when it comes.
You gotta have a lot of backing.
What was that?
Casinos are expensive, man. You gotta have a lot of backing.
Yeah, I don't know, but are they going to do it? Could you find investors for that sort of thing? It's always like one of those things, right? There's always been talking to New Orleans of like, will Gail Benson sell the Pelicans? And like, I don't know, if she has $300 million in the bank, does she need more cash necessarily? Like that should be good enough to almost buy anything that you want, I would imagine. So that's where this looks a little bit weird. I saw people making jokes that he's going to be running for president. Maybe there's a bylaw in the NBA that your NBA governors can't be the president of the United States as well. We'll see with everything. But look, he's owned them since 2000, I believe. So it's a 23-year run that he's had, and he'll still kind of be doing everything. But it's just like genuinely surprising to see that.
I agree. And I think Brendan Clean, our Locked On Suns host, proposed an interesting question. We kind of alluded to the answer, or at least what is the currently perceived answer already, is like, how did the Suns get sold at a way higher valuation? Like in the past, right? Because these values are supposed to be going up. I think Cuban was one of the ones who said something about the TV deals, like he thinks the next one will be big, and then after that, it's going to be a lot of question marks, like with the change of consumer streaming habits and stuff like that. So, of course, that's interesting to me on like how he went, if he's deciding to get out with any sort of specific timing. But it is interesting that the valuation is lower, and maybe that's just because he agreed to that valuation to do the stuff we've already talked about, to be the guy in charge, to be around all the time. Owning a sports team, if you're involved, pretty fun. Pretty fun gig.
It seems cool. Wouldn't hate doing that myself.
It's a pretty fun job. So I think that could be part of it, but that's a lot of money for that kind of arrangement. So I think there might be more that we don't maybe fully know about this.
Yeah, this will probably be a developing story. Certainly, they're going to be talking about it over at the Locked On Mavericks podcast. I know the rest of our hosts here will be talking about it on the Locked On NBA podcast. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On NBA podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Coming up tomorrow, Nick Angstad, Pat the Designer, breaking down the biggest stories. I'll probably touch on this as well with Nick being the Locked On Mavs guy. On Wednesdays, I'm your co-host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, and the host of the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
Tony East, Locked On Pacers, and happy to be here to be the NBA Owners Insider, apparently. Every Wednesday, baby.
And in-season tournament expert. Don't forget that either.
I love
All right, appreciate y'all listening. See y'all next week.